Shri RamaKrishna Namo Namaha. At first I offer my humble prayers in the lotus feet of Lord Shri RamaKrishna. I also offer my humble respect to all of you. Today from the book Sayings of Shri RamaKrishna, we will listen about man in bondage and death and reincarnation. His holy and divine words are as follows. The true nature of a jiva is eternal existence, knowledge, bliss. It is due to egotism that he is limited by so many upadhis and has forgotten his real nature. As the snake is separate from its slough, even so is the spirit separate from the body. The self is not attached to anything. Pleasure, pain, selffulness, righteousness, etc. can never affect the self in any way, but they can affect those who identify themselves with the body. As smoke can blacken only the wall, but not the space enclosed within it. The Vedantis say that the Atman is completely unattached. Sin or virtue, pain or pleasure cannot affect it, but they can inflict suffering on those who have attachment to the body. The smoke can soil the walls, but can do nothing to the sky. Men are of different natures, according to the preponderance of sattva, rajas and tamas in them. Though all souls are one and the same in their ultimate nature, there are four classes according to their respective conditions. They are baddha or bound, mumukshu or struggling for liberation, mukta or emancipated, or nitya mukta or ever free. A fisherman cast his net into the river and had a large haul. Some fish lay in the net calm and motionless, not exerting in the least to go out of it. Others struggled and jumped out, but could not extricate themselves, while a third class of fish somehow managed to force their way out of the net. In the world, men too are thus of three kinds: those who are bound and never strive to be free, those who are bound but struggle for freedom, and those who have already attained freedom. There are three dolls, the first made of salt, the second made of cloth, and the third of stone. If these dolls are immersed in water, the first will become dissolved and lose its form. The second will absorb a large quantity of water but retain its form, and the third will remain impervious to water. The first doll represents the man who merges his self in the universal and all-pervading self and becomes one with it. He is the liberated man. The second represents the bhakta or the true lover of God, who is full of divine bliss and knowledge. And the third represents the worldly man, who will not admit even a particle of true knowledge into his heart. Men are like pillowcases. The color of one may be red, that of another blue, and that of a third black, but all contain the same cotton within. So it is with man. One is beautiful, another is black, a third holy, and fourth wicked, but the divine being dwells in them all. The outer layers of cakes are made of rice flour, but inside they are stuffed with different ingredients. The cake is good or bad according to the quality of its stuffing. So all human bodies are made of one and the same material. Yet men are different in quality according to the purity of their hearts. A Brahmana's son is no doubt a Brahmana by birth, but some of these born Brahmanas grow up into great scholars. Some become priests, others turn out cooks, and still others roll themselves in the dust before courtesans' doors. It is true that God is even in the tiger, but we must not therefore go and face that animal. It is true that God dwells even in the most wicked beings, but it is not proper that we should associate with them. Lord Narayana broods over the water, but every kind of water is not fit for drinking. Similarly, though it is true that God dwells in every place, yet every place is not fit to be visited by man. One kind of water may be used for washing our feet, another for purposes of ablution, and a third for drinking, while there are still others which are unfit even to be touched. Similarly, there are different places of which some may be approached and others visited, while there are still others which should only be saluted from a distance and bidden goodbye. Beware of the following: the garrulous man, the man who is not open-hearted, The man who makes a parade of his devotion by sticking sacred tulsi leaves on his ears, a woman who wears long veil, and the cool water of the stagnant pool overgrown with rank vegetation, which is very injurious to health. Even at the time of death, the bound souls speak of worldly matters only. There is no use in visiting places of pilgrimage or bathing in the holy Ganges or counting beads if there are worldly attachments in the heart. They are sure to manifest themselves at the dying moment. Hence, bound souls indulge in random talks even at that time. A parrot may ordinarily sing the holy name of Radha Krishna, but when it is attacked by a cat, it cries out "Ka ka," its natural cry. Man suffers so much simply for want of devotion to God. One should therefore adopt such means as would help the thought of God to arise in the mind at the last moment of one's life. The means is practice of devotion to God. If this is done during one's lifetime, the thought of God is sure to occur to one's mind even at the last hour. A man's rebirth is determined by what he has been thinking about just before death. Devotional practices are therefore very necessary. If by constant practice one's mind is freed from all worldly ideas, then the thought of God, which fills the mind in their place, will not leave it even at the time of death. When an unbaked pot is broken, the potter can use the mud to make a new one. But when a baked one is broken, he cannot do the same any longer. So when a person dies in a state of ignorance, he is born again. But when he becomes well baked in the fire of true knowledge and dies a perfect man, he is not born again. A grain of boiled paddy does not sprout again when sown. Only unboiled paddy sends forth the shoot. Similarly, when one dies after becoming a siddha, a perfect man, he is not to be born again, but an asiddha, an imperfect man, has to born again and again until he becomes a siddha. Thus concludes today's holy words of Swami Shri RamaKrishna from the book Sayings of Shri RamaKrishna. Thank you for listening. Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha.